Canada may be one engine decision away from breaking Washington's fighter jet veto, reshaping Arctic air power, NATO politics, and the future of Allied dependence. What looks like a routine fighter jet procurement may actually be the opening move in a quiet strategic break with Washington. Canada's Gripen decision has just been reshaped by an unexpected actor, Rolls-Royce, and the implications reach far beyond engines or airframes. For years, Ottawa has been trapped between two pressures: the operational demands of defending one of the world's largest airspaces and the political cost of dependence on American defense systems. The F-35 was sold as the default answer, a fifth-generation solution tightly integrated with NATO and NORAD. But beneath the stealth coatings and sensor fusion, it came with a price few Canadian planners were comfortable paying: long-term strategic dependence. Canada's geography is unforgiving. From Arctic patrols over frozen oceans to rapid intercepts across vast, sparsely populated regions, its Air Force needs aircraft that can launch quickly, operate in extreme cold, and sustain high readiness without fragile supply chains. The Gripen emerged as a serious alternative because it was designed for similar conditions in Northern Europe. Short takeoff capability, dispersed basing, low operating costs, and fast turnaround times align closely with Canada's real defense needs. Yet one obstacle remained decisive. The Gripen's American-made engine meant Washington would still retain veto power over upgrades, exports, and even certain maintenance decisions. Independence in name, dependency in practice. That equation is now shifting. Rolls-Royce has entered the conversation with a proposal that, if realized, would remove the American choke point entirely. This is not simply a technical substitution. Engines are leverage. They determine who controls supply chains, who authorizes upgrades, and who decides how long aircraft remain combat-ready during crises. For decades, the United States has used this leverage quietly, embedding political influence into the hardware of allied air forces. Canada understands this dynamic better than most. Arctic sovereignty, NORAD response timelines, and relations with both Washington and emerging partners all intersect here. What makes this moment different is timing. Global defense supply chains are strained. Alliance politics are shifting. Smaller and mid-sized powers are questioning whether dependence still equals security. A Gripen powered without American oversight would not just serve Canada's needs, it would signal a broader challenge to a system that has governed Western air power for half a century. The story unfolding is not about choosing one fighter over another. It is about who controls the switch when pressure rises, and whether Canada is prepared to hold that authority itself. At the center of this debate sits an often overlooked reality of modern air power. Engines matter more geopolitically than airframes. While stealth profiles and avionics dominate headlines, propulsion systems quietly determine sovereignty. Under American export law, any fighter jet using a United States origin engine falls under Washington's approval regime. That includes upgrades, technology transfers, resale, and sometimes even mission-critical software integration. The Gripen's General Electric engine placed it squarely within that framework, limiting the strategic autonomy Ottawa sought. Rolls-Royce changes that calculation. The company brings decades of experience designing engines for harsh environments, including sustained operations in extreme cold. From military cooperation with Nordic NATO members to civilian Arctic aviation, its propulsion systems are optimized for reliability where fuel thickens, seals, freeze, and maintenance windows are narrow. For Canada, this is not theoretical performance. It is mission survival. Arctic intercepts cannot wait for specialized crews flown in from centralized depots. They require aircraft that can be serviced quickly, locally, and predictably. The Gripen's operational philosophy aligns with this reality. It was built for dispersed operations, capable of launching from short runways or highway strips, supported by small teams using minimal ground equipment. Turnaround times measured in minutes, not hours, translate directly into higher sortie generation during crises. When paired with a non-American engine, these advantages extend beyond performance into governance. Canada would gain the ability to manage its own maintenance cycles, customize upgrades, and plan long-term fleet readiness without external approval delays. Cost dynamics reinforce the argument. Independent assessments consistently show the Gripen's operating costs far below those of the F-35. Lower fuel consumption, simpler maintenance, and reduced reliance on global supply hubs produce predictable budgets over decades. Rolls-Royce's modular engine support model further stabilizes these costs, reducing vulnerability to political disruptions or export restrictions. Over a full service life, this difference compounds into billions saved, funds that can be reinvested into training, basing, or emerging capabilities. Interoperability remains a critical concern, and here the narrative becomes more nuanced. NATO compatibility is not binary. Data links, identification systems, and shared operational doctrines can be integrated without surrendering control over core systems. Analysts increasingly refer to this balance as sustainable sovereignty, remaining aligned with allies while retaining national authority over critical assets. In this framework, a Gripen equipped with a Rolls-Royce engine represents not isolation, but selective independence. It preserves coalition effectiveness while removing a single-point political dependency. That distinction is precisely why this proposal is being watched closely beyond Canada's borders. Behind the technical arguments lies a deeper strategic tension that rarely appears in official statements. Defense procurement is not just about capability, it is about influence networks. The F-35 program is structured as a centralized ecosystem with software updates, parts distribution, and maintenance protocols tightly controlled through American hubs. This creates efficiency, but it also creates leverage. During diplomatic disagreements or shifting priorities, access can be slowed, modified, or conditioned. No explicit pressure is required. The system enforces alignment on its own. A Gripen freed from American propulsion control disrupts that model. It reduces Washington's indirect influence over Allied air forces, not by confrontation, but by option. That is what makes it sensitive. When alternatives emerge that meet operational needs without political strings, the balance inside alliances subtly shifts. Decision makers gain bargaining space, smaller states gain voice. From an intelligence perspective, this is where quiet lobbying intensifies. Defense contractors, subcontractors, and aligned policy groups move to shape narratives, emphasize risks, or reframe interoperability concerns. These are not conspiracies. They are predictable responses to threatened market dominance. Canada's internal debate reflects these pressures. Industrial participation is a powerful motivator. A partnership with Rolls-Royce opens the door to domestic engine assembly, long-term maintenance hubs, and workforce development. That benefits not only the Air Force, but also the broader defense industrial base. Such arrangements create local stakeholders invested in autonomy. In contrast, the F-35 concentrates high-value maintenance and software control outside national borders, limiting domestic leverage. This difference shapes political coalitions quietly, but decisively. There is also an intelligence dimension tied to readiness. Reports from current Gripen operators consistently indicate higher availability rates compared to more complex fifth-generation platforms. While figures vary, the underlying logic is clear. Simpler systems with decentralized support models recover faster from disruption. In contested environments or during supply chain shocks, this resilience becomes strategic. Adversaries plan around downtime as much as capability. An aircraft grounded by logistics is irrelevant, regardless of its specifications. Internationally, other states are watching closely. Countries with limited budgets or sensitive geopolitical positions see the potential precedent. If Canada demonstrates that a NATO member can field a modern fighter outside the traditional dependency framework, it expands the menu of acceptable choices. That, in turn, pressures existing suppliers to adapt. This is why reactions from Washington will matter. Increased engagement, revised incentives, or heightened warnings about integration risks would all signal that the proposal is being taken seriously. In intelligence terms, silence would indicate confidence. Noise would indicate concern. As this debate moves forward, its consequences will extend well beyond a single procurement decision. Canada stands at an inflection point, common to many mid-sized powers, in an era of renewed great power competition. The question is no longer whether allies should cooperate, but how much autonomy they retain within that cooperation. Air power sits at the heart of this dilemma because it combines sovereignty, deterrence, and alliance signaling in a single platform. A Gripen equipped with a Rolls-Royce engine would represent a different model of alignment. Canada would remain integrated with NATO and NORAD while exercising greater control over readiness, upgrades, and long-term planning. In the Arctic, where response times are measured in minutes and political ambiguity is common, that control matters. It allows decision makers to act based on national assessments rather than external approval cycles. Over decades, such autonomy compounds into strategic confidence. For the United States, this scenario is not catastrophic, but it is uncomfortable. Influence exercised through technology has been one of its most effective tools, precisely because it is subtle and durable. When partners accept centralized systems, they accept shared timelines and constraints. If alternatives proliferate, influence becomes more negotiated and less automatic. That does not weaken alliances, but it does change their internal dynamics. Power becomes more distributed, and consensus requires more persuasion. Globally, defense markets would adjust, suppliers emphasizing modularity, export flexibility, and localized support would gain ground. Smaller nations would reassess trade-offs between cutting-edge complexity and operational resilience. The narrative that security requires maximal dependence would erode, replaced by a more layered understanding of interoperability. This shift would not happen overnight, but precedents matter. Canada's choice would be studied, debated, and referenced in future decisions from Europe to the Indo-Pacific. None of this guarantees a final outcome. Procurement politics are fluid, influenced by elections, budgets, and shifting threat perceptions. The F-35 still offers unmatched sensor integration and coalition advantages. The Gripen offers responsiveness, affordability, and adaptability. Rolls-Royce adds a lever that did not previously exist. The decision ultimately reflects how Canada defines security in a world where alliances remain vital, but autonomy is increasingly valued. What is certain is that engines, once treated as technical footnotes, have returned to the center of strategic planning. They determine who controls the tempo of air operations and who holds the keys during crises. As great powers test boundaries and supply chains remain contested, these details become decisive. Canada's Gripen debate illustrates a broader truth of modern geopolitics. Sovereignty is no longer declared. It is engineered. Rolls-Royce doesn't just change an engine choice. It changes who holds leverage when Arctic pressure spikes and supply chains tighten. Canada's next move will echo across NATO procurement, budgets, and sovereignty. If you want more intelligence-grade briefings, like, subscribe, and comment what Ottawa should choose before the independence window closes.